We have a code Scarlet. Welcome to the world famous podcast. I'm your host, Mason. And why do we have a code Scarlet? It's game week, baby. It is game week. We are entering the first year of the college football playoff, the expanded rendition of it, opening up to 12 teams, where we have some big games coming up that are in some very historic venues against some very storied teams. So we'll be getting into that today. First, we're just going to cover what the world famous podcast is. First of all, the name. If you guys have ever watched a Big Noon Kickoff, if you've watched any Ohio State football this year, you watched a lot of it. But Gus Johnson opens up every game with the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes. So hence the name. What are my credentials for this? Well, I went there. That's about it. And I never played football. I don't have any football experience. So this is going to be a way that I can navigate football and talk about football and, explain it from a layman's point of view to the rest of you laymen's out there. You're in good company, or we're all in bad company together. Regardless, we're going to have some fun with it. A couple of the talking points today. I'm going to try to keep it short, sweet, and concise. I'm going to talk about Ryan Day. I'm going to talk about the college football playoff, how we got to the 8th seed, match up with Tennessee, and then finishing with what the Buckeyes need to do to get a W, and what we learned against taking that L at the end of the year. As much as it hurt, what can we glean from it? And hopefully they can move forward. Of course, I'm expecting Ryan Day to watch this and take this as expert opinion and gospel and implement it into the win. And if they do get the W, then I can claim all the credit. So first things first, talking about Ryan Day. I know after the loss in the game, a lot of people wanted him fired, myself included. And I think after sitting on it for a little bit, I don't think that's the right move for two very obvious reasons to that. Number one, who are we going to find better? I know there's people talking about Brian Hartline, promoting him up. People talking about Mike Vrabel. I still think Ryan Day's the guy. You take the 4 losses to that team up north out of the equation. He's still got one of the best win percentages in college football. We've gotten to a natty. We didn't win. We faced a generational team in Alabama. We made it to the college football playoff a handful of times already when it was just down to 4 teams. And, we're in it again this year. The other part of it, another obvious reason, Ohio State would have to eat $38 million to let him go. And I don't think they're about to do that and then go try to sign another high-profile head coach. So all that together, another thing I did hear the other day, an interesting point from the new AD there, Ross Bjork. I think that's his name. I apologize if I got it wrong. But he was talking on another podcast that I was listening to, and he said that of the big name Ohio State head coaches, all of them have had head coaching experience before at this level from a major program. And Ryan Day, he took the keys of the kingdom from Urban, but he hadn't coached at a Power 5 program yet. So this is still his first venture into coaching a team like the caliber of Ohio State, the pedigree of Ohio State. So there is a little bit of a learning curve there too. I know that it sounds like I'm trying to bail him out. And maybe part of me is, maybe part of me wants to see him be successful at Ohio State. And I think we would all agree that that'd be the best case is if he was. So there might be a little bit of that as well. Also, we're stuck with him. We got to get through this college football playoff. We can't be firing the head coach and then expecting the team to rally and go on a championship run. So if anything, Buckeye fans that want Ryan Day's head, you need him. End of story. Moving into the college football playoff. So again, we've been in this playoff setting. We've had 4 teams since 2014 when the Ohio State Buckeyes won the inaugural college football playoff national championship. taking down powerhouse Alabama, and then beating the Oregon Ducks, hoisting the trophy under Urban Meyer. Amazing run, amazing. I loved watching that run from the Big Ten championship, pounding Wisconsin 52 or 59-0, beating the brakes off of Alabama, beating the brakes off of Oregon. And then, we had an unfortunate end to that 4-team era last year when the arch nemesis won, but that's sports. Moving past that quickly. Now we're into the 12-team playoff. And we have 4 teams that get an automatic first-round bye, and then you have the other 8 at-large teams that go and they play at the higher seed, their home stadium. So we're getting games at the Shoe. We're getting a game at, I think it's Notre Dame's home field. We're getting a game out in Penn State in Happy Valley. And we're getting a game in, who's the other matchup? Oh, down in Texas. So we have four pretty prestigious universities hosting the inaugural home games for this college football playoff, which is pretty cool. One thing, I wish it was a little bit different was maybe the way that they seeded teams, but it's what we got this year. There's going to be bumps in the road. I think there's rumors that they're going to expand the playoff to more teams. I assume they'll do that because the NCAA loves money more than anything else. But I think the committee will eventually get it right. There's a lot of people that they got to try to keep happy, and I don't think that the teams will be fan bases and teams will be happy one year, and then the next year they'll get jobbed by the same rules. So this is the path that we've kind of had given to us. We'll dig into that a little bit more ahead here. Kind of moving into like how we got to our 8 seed. So, we were in the driver's seat. Let's just face it. We had 2 big wins on the road at Penn State, where the game was a lot tighter than it should have been. We helped keep them in the game, but the boys stuck it out. We got a dub there. Come home a few weeks later, beat the upstart Indiana Hoosiers, both of which teams are in the college football playoff. Beat them pretty well. Again, not a complete game, but we were there. We beat them handily and even put a little insult to injury. Maybe that came back to bite us the next week, but after those 2 wins, we were sitting in the driver's seat to face off against Oregon in the Big Ten championship and hopefully get ourselves a first-round bye. And then tragedy happens. I think tragedy is probably a nice way of putting how that game felt. That was just nightmare fuel. It really was. There's no sugarcoating it. Bucks look bad. It was a bad, poorly played game, poorly called game, and I think that's the majority of where the frustration from a lot of the fan base comes from, is how poorly that game was called from a coaching standpoint. From my perspective, they go out, they bring in Chip Kelly. He's supposed to be this offensive guru. He's supposed to be this really creative guy, and for a few games against those bigger wins against Penn State and against Indiana, he was in his bag. We had both games. We had a reshuffled O-line, and we didn't know what offensive production was going to look like. He did great at setting guys up, getting Henderson and Quinshon Judkins out in space, getting them that way they didn't have to try to run between the tackles, but they could make a few guys miss and they'd have a ton of open room to run. He was great at getting Will Howard to move, which is a big reason why we brought in Will Howard through the transfer portal in the first place. Was we wanted a guy that was a little bit more mobile, add an extra wrinkle to the offense, make it challenging for defenses to game plan for. In those 2 games, masterful, great. Obviously, got the ball to the Ohio State wide receivers, the cream of the crop. Weapons on weapons on weapons out there on the edge and over the middle. We don't have to speak much on them to highlight how great they are. And then it comes to the game, and all of a sudden we just forget that we can throw the football. We try to run it at right at the line where they're the strongest. They have probably the best one. They have one of the best run defenses in the nation, and we're just going to try to beat them at that because that's what we got to do to assert dominance. I'd rather just get the W any way that we can. That's a big reason why we ended up losing that game. So we lose that game. We get bumped out of the Big Ten championship. We're sitting at home, and because we're now 10-2 with a loss to the top-ranked team and then a bad loss at home where we were favored by 3 scores, we get shuffled down from 2 all the way down to 8. We still get the home game. That's huge. I think that's really big. It was loud when they were playing Indiana. I hope that it gets loud like that again. This is going to be a night game. That's big. We've been, I hinted at it. There's been a ton of big noon games this year, and I think Ohio State fans, me included, myself included, are tired of it. We're tired of watching Bucks play at noon. First of all, throws off your freaking Saturday. I got stuff to do. Second of all, it definitely increases the in-game atmosphere, and there's just something about Ohio State fans when you're in the shoe, the lights come on, the LEDs going, and it's just like it turns from just ho hum to just like an insane rabid fan base that just wants carnage. It's like it's people that were watching gladiators battle in Rome in the Coliseum. That's the atmosphere that happens at the shoe at night. And thank God we got that against Tennessee because they are no slouch. This is probably the hardest matchup of any home team in the college football playoff that they have to go out and try to get a W against. I'm not saying that any team is more or less deserving, but that's the draw that we have because we couldn't handle business. So that said, getting into some of the nitty gritty and moving into what I hope to see from this game. So lining up Tennessee's defense against OSU's offense. Tennessee's defense is allowed just under 15 points a game, while Ohio State's offense scores just over 35 points a game. So sitting good there. Their defense, they allow the opponent red zone scoring percentage that Tennessee's defense allows is 75% of the time they allow teams to score when they get in the red zone. Ohio State scores at a rate of almost 88% of the time. Tennessee's defense, they allow almost 290 yards per game total. They allow just over 100 rushing yards per game. They allow 180-ish passing yards per game. Ohio State, on the other hand, they rack up 423 yards a game. They get about 169 yards per game. They average about 254 passing yards per game. And I think those are going to be the biggest ones that we're going to see how Ohio State handles. Tennessee's defense also they've had 28 sacks this year. While Will Howard on the Ohio State's offense, on the other hand, has only been sacked 10 times. I didn't know that given the reshuffling of the offensive line, the lack of confidence that I have in the offensive line because of all the injuries that we've had, including the injury to Seth McLaughlin, the best center in the country as of like today or yesterday or whatever. I didn't know that Will Howard had only been sacked 10 times prior to about 30 minutes ago. So that's great to hear. But I've heard a lot about Tennessee's defense, especially their edge rushers. They get a lot of pressure. Their 2 edge rushers, I think, lead their team in sacks. One of them being James Pierce and then Omar Norman. James Pierce has 8 sacks, and then Omar Norman has tacked on another 4. So combined, they have a little under half of the team sacks on that quarterback. I'm assuming they get a lot of pressure on them too. But this is going to be a similar game, I think, to our game against Penn State. That game against Penn State, similar pressure coming off the edge rushers from first round NFL talent. Forget the names, but that's what the internet's for, and I didn't use it prior to this for that. Anyway, I think this game is going to be very similar to that. I think there hasn't been much said about Tennessee's pass defense when it comes to their secondary, so I'm hoping that Ohio State just one thing that they learned from the loss at the end of the year is that just because you want to establish the run doesn't mean that you can't throw the damn ball. And when you got guys like Jeremiah Smith, like Emeka Egbuka, like Carnell Tate, like Brandon Inniss, and even G. Scott, our tight end, when you give that many weapons at your disposal, I don't understand why you don't just utilize it. Throw it up to them because they're going to make the catch majority of the time. It boggles my mind, and I hope that we see that moving forward into this game because I don't want to be throwing my hat at the TV again. Like that was just awful, And I think one thing too is once that pass game gets going, you open up the run game. Gets softened up a little bit there. They start having to recalibrate how they're going to attack on the defensive front, and when you got them thinking pass, it's like boom. Now you got some space to work with your running backs. I think that's the big key too. Is not only just passing down the field, but getting your guys in motion, getting Travion Henderson, getting Quinshon Judkins, getting Ryan Howard, getting them moving. I think keeping Tennessee's defense off balance. That way they're not coming straight down the barrel every single time. Getting your playmakers who make guys miss and who are fast out in space. So it's priority 1 on offense, getting the ball to the wide receivers. Priority 2, don't run straight at Tennessee. Get outside the hash marks, get outside the pocket, get Will Howard moving, and make their DNs make a decision. Now that was the one big thing that we saw against Penn State was Will Howard doing a run pass option, and he's running straight at the defensive end, making him make a decision. And it's what's that guy going to do? Is he going to take quarterback? Is he going to go after the running back? And it worked beautifully. I'd like to see more of that coming into this game this Saturday. On the flip side of that coin, moving into Tennessee's offense versus Tennessee's defense. Tennessee's offense, they are just about as productive as Ohio State's. They get about 34 points a game. They score on about 80% of their red zones, the times that they're in the red zone. 440 total yards a game, 226 rushing yards per game, 214 passing yards per game. They average 5 yards a rush and about 8 yards a pass. Dangerous. However, they're going up against probably the best defense that I've seen at Ohio State in a long time, and arguably the best defense in the country. They only allow 10 points a game, 11 points a game. Their red zone scoring, their opponent red zone scoring is at 55%, which is number 1 in the nation. Another great year under Jim Knowles, holding opponents to only scoring about half the time they get down in the red zone. They allow 240 yards a game total. They allow just under 100 rushing yards a game, and they allow 145-ish passing yards a game. So the biggest key on Ohio State's defense's side, stopping the run. I've heard a lot about Tennessee's running back. I don't watch a lot of Tennessee football, so I don't have names. Heard a lot about him. He's the guy that they run the offense through. I think they average like 60-some, or the percent of their offensive plays is at like 60% or something like that, maybe a little bit more. So you're getting the majority of your offensive production out of your running back. I'm not naive to say that, we're going to completely shut him down. We could, that'd be great. But, he's going to get his yards. We just need to limit the success that running back has. Because, I think their quarterback, from what I've come to learn about him in the last week or so, is that, he is not the greatest under pressure. He's not bad. I mean, he's starting quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers, the number 9 team in the nation, or 8, or whatever the hell their final ranking was. He's not bad. He's just he's not the guy that's going to win you a game. So we need to put more of the pressure on him, make him beat you, and just contain their running game. I think they got the guys to do it. We the 2 big games that we had, we didn't hear, it's the 4 big games. So 4 big games: Oregon, Penn State, Indiana, and that team up north that we had. We didn't hear a lot of Jack Sawyer. We didn't hear a lot of JT Tuimoloau. So we need to make sure that those guys get into the backfield, pressure the quarterback, get some tackles for a loss. And I think that slows Tennessee down enough. Another observation I've had is that on both sides of the ball, the guys that are on the line are playing the majority of the snaps. I think I forget how many plays that were in the final game of the year total for Ohio State's, how many plays that they had to be on for their defense. But I think like their front 4 were in for 90+% of them. At the end of the game, you're just gassed. You got to make sure guys are rotating a little bit more, making sure that, the guys that you want to be your playmakers are fresh so they can make plays. That's what they're there for. That's what you gave them all that friggin' NIL money for. Make sure that they can get to the backfield, make sure that they can get the stops they need to get you the ball back so you can go down and do what you do best. Get to the red zone and score points. Unless you're a kicker and it's windy. That's a joke. I hope. So all that being said, I think this will be an exciting game. This is going to be a nerve-wracking game. Like all of us Buckeye fans come to know and understand, is that there's an anxiety that comes around watching this team all the time. So that's not going to change this week. That's not going to change for the rest of the year. But, if Ohio State can get a big win this weekend, I think that is enough momentum. I think they're odds-on. They're not the odds-on favorite, but they're the number 4. Their odds of winning the national championship puts them in like 4th behind Texas, Georgia, and Oregon, barely. I think Texas' chance to win are 1 in 4. So decent odds to win. And I think if they get a W here, those odds only increase. That they need some momentum. It's tough coming out of the cloud that was the loss in the game. As much as it pains us, like we're still alive in this. We could still get a W. We could still win a national championship. And at the end of the day, that is the ultimate bragging right. And I stand by that. Not to diminish the value of the game, but you got to move on, and we have an opportunity to do so. So closing thoughts: pass the ball, running backs in space, stop the run, make them throw, and for God's sake, play like it's the first year under Urban Meyer. Like that energy, and I want this from the fan base too. That energy was something that I have yet to see, and that was amazing. At being on campus at that time, there was just this buzz in the air that this Ohio State team was going to be different, and they had an attitude and they had a swagger to them, and they came in and they beat the piss out of people. It was such a fun season to watch. Watching them go 12-0, I want to see that same type of mentality, that rabid dog pack mentality We're going to get after the Tennessee Volunteers, go in, get a W, and get this gravy train rolling through the college football playoff. I'll try to get more updates. I don't know the frequency of this as I get used to it. Try to get updates more. I'm going to try to get audio versions of this so it's easier to access. But for now, I'm going to try to get it up on YouTube, and that's where you can find me. So appreciate you for listening. Please come back for more. I want to do I want to do this. This is going to be a fun time. So as always, go Bucks.